I'm excited. We have a member of the 1973 team joining today. And his name is Jack Welch. He's moved on to be a high school football coach for 20 some odd years in Texas. He lived Friday Night Lights for a considerable portion of his career. So let's have a talk with Jack Welch and see what he's got to share about Osawatomie. Can't hear me yet. We're connecting. We're getting.
All right.
Yes.
I think there you go.
Coach, how are you?
How you doing? Good.
Good.
Let's try this again.
Well, we'll get it all squared away.
You get to talking, and you hadn't talked to somebody. I had no idea we were talking through just a portion, and that's really what it should be. So
yeah.
Anyway, I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, well, I'm excited. We've had a lot of turnover here at the school. We've had 5-6 principals in the last 5 or 6 years. We had new superintendent. I think we lost 40% of our staff last year. And I was talking to Rodney Madden. I don't know if you're familiar with Rodney Madden.
Very familiar. Familiar. I've known Rodney a long time. His brother played for me at Fort Scott.
Randy did?
Yeah, thought his name was Dave. Was it Dave?
Is there another one?
We called him Crazy Legs.
Oh,
we called him Crazy Legs. And he owned a whole bunch of apartments there in Osawatomie. Oh. And he was older. He came to play for me. I think he's like 24, 25 when he came.
Oh, wow.
But Randy Madden, Randy's the younger one.
Yeah, Rodney's the older one. Randy's the younger. He was a shop coach or shop teacher here for a long time.
Yeah, well, it wasn't Randy.
Yeah, I was talking to Rodney, and I said, let's instead of waiting for the next principal or the next whoever to try and make this a place that we want to work, let's just make it. Let's take the reins and make this a place that we want to be at. So part of that is me doing these conversations with people from Osawatomie and people who have connections to Osawatomie, and you are undoubtedly one of the. Somebody I want to talk to. You have a super interesting history as far as like your travels, leaving Osawatomie and going to Texas and coaching high school ball for so many. It's just awesome. And so that's some stuff that I want to talk to you about.
What you're saying is I'm old.
Yes, that's exactly.
I got you. I understand.
Yeah. And whatever stories from the Depression you want to share, you are more than. So just kidding. So let's talk about your time at Osawatomie. Your dad was the superintendent of railroads. Is that right?
Yes, he was superintendent there, and we lived there for 3 years, really 3.5 years. I went there in the 8th grade year, and then I left halfway through my junior year.
Okay. Excellent. And I got and that was 70. That was the 73, the 73 team, right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
yeah.
Sir.
So
I was a junior. I was a junior that year.
Yeah, and you just walk me through a little bit the 73 season. Did you guys have like a summer program or anything that you had to do, or was it, school starts, practice starts? How was it?
Yeah. Well, back then you couldn't work the kids out in the summer. Everything's changed. And so back then, what we did for the summer, to be quite frank with you, is we all hauled hay.
Oh.
And hauling hay got you ready for football. But what we used to do is we used to go downtown Osawatomie and be right in the middle of that downtown street there before you got to the municipal auditorium, about halfway down the street. And you'd be standing out there in the morning. A car would come by, pickup would come by and say, "I need 2 guys." You'd jump in, and that's the way we worked. A whole bunch of us did anyway to make money as we hauled hay.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that's a matter of fact, a great story on Dereck Jensen. If you get to that here in a little while, about him. I saw him getting ready for his senior year. He was hauling hay with a 50-pound weight vest, and he would wear ankle bracelets. And he was doing that out there in the heat of the summer, getting himself ready. He was a tremendous worker.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it takes a special kind to be able to get as
Yes.
far as Dereck did. You know, he 2 Super Bowl appearances, and
Yes,
yeah, that takes
blocked a punt against the Washington Redskins and recovered it in the end zone, and they won the Super Bowl that year.
Yeah, one of the greatest plays in Super Bowl history.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I was coaching Division I football when he was playing for the Raiders, and a guy that one of the top scouts, as he would come in, we would talk about Dereck every year because he was a Kansas boy and highly thought of. He was a running back along with Riggins in high school. They were the 2 fastest kids in the state, and then he went on to play pro ball and was a pro scout. So every time he'd come in, Steve Crosby was his name, from Great Bend, Kansas. Every time he'd come in, I'd ask him, I said, is Dereck going to make it this year? It's close. He's going to make it. And every year go by, Dereck just kept on. And of course, Dereck, was the special teams coordinator, or special teams captain, not coordinator, but special teams captain. And he played everything. The people loved him. They all liked Dereck because he was such a hard worker.
Yeah. And it sounds like he got his chops whenever he was, a kid here in town.
Yeah.
So, you've coached, and if I know anything about a coach that's worth their salt, they are developing men. You're constantly trying to use the game as an excuse to help develop character with kids and help develop character with those players. When it comes to that, is there anything that you learned from the coaches at Osawatomie or the teammates at Osawatomie? What kind of attitude or lessons, or what can you take away from your time at Osawatomie with the people here that you still use to this day?
Well, those were probably the most formative years of my life. Those early years, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, of being around such great athletes, number one. Number two, such great coaches. And I took a whole bunch of things away I still use to this day. And one being how our coaches worked. Coach Freeman was an outstanding football coach. He was a developer. He developed those kids and worked extremely hard. And one of the things that Coach Freeman was very proud of is he was proud of his teaching. He was a teacher first, and he took his classroom duties very serious. And then, of course, Coach Eckert, I knew Coach Eckert, from day one that I moved in there. And of course, he was the basketball coach and the AD, a great basketball coach and a great PE teacher.
Yeah.
And he disciplined me probably more than anybody. And I think of him, and I think of Coach Went, my freshman football coach there, Coach Calvin, my 8th grade coach. I mean, they were all great coaches because they were great men.
Yeah.
And they took care of you. Even when I left there, Dave, this is what really sticks with me, is that those guys stayed in touch with me. They wrote me letters during college. Coach Freeman, being at Lawrence, went and left Lawrence, and who would have ever thought he would think of me? Right. Coach Heckert, I left. I had to leave during that season. Send me the cup, send me my Letterman's letter, all those things, stayed up with me all the way, even past college, when I had an opportunity to move on from there. But always writing me letters, and I was so thankful for that. So those are the things that I remember about Osawatomie. Osawatomie was a special town. People in town there loved their kids, loved the school, and we had great support. Doing the pep rallies, the homecoming game, the homecoming parade, all that was a big deal in Osawatomie. And my dad, being superintendent of the railroad, kind of exemplified that, because you had the superintendent of the railroad, you had the superintendent of schools. So we were at everything, and it was very, very important. School was important in Osawatomie. So I take those things still to this day with me in coaching. I could just start naming a list of things I learned from those coaches. And then about those players, and we'll talk probably more about that, but the players were unbelievable, outstanding football players, outstanding athletes. I don't think you ever get a class like that together, or surely there are classes that get together like that, but very, very seldom.
Right. especially in rural Kansas.
Yes.
Yeah, I almost wonder if they all kind of work, if that group, if that group, I guess it would be the class of 76, or the class of 74, and the class the 72, 73, 74, that era. If those groups of kids that grew up together, playing sports in the backyard and playing baseball, if they all kind of worked each other to make each other better,
And that's back when we played every sport. All of us, I mean, about everybody that was on that football team played baseball together, played basketball together, wrestled together, ran track. We did it all. We did it all.
Yeah, so my father-in-law, Stan Newcomb, he still has the record for the 8th grade record for shot put. So
I remember that
at the middle school, there's a record board in the cafeteria, and there's like some letters missing over the years, like his name S. Newcomb is still up there to this day, and he wears that badge very proudly.
Well, I remember when Stanley won that record. I was there, and of course, he was my buddy. I like Stanley Newcomb. Stanley was a good athlete, great basketball player, great trackster, good football player. I mean, he played it all, and he even boxed. I think they used to go out in their yard and box all the time, but he's just a good all-around athlete.
You mentioned that he was a good basketball player. In order for so I married his daughter, and whenever she's telling me stories about, when she was growing up and stuff, in order for her to get the keys to the car, to learn to get her driver's license, she had to beat him in a game of around the world in basketball.
So, he could shoot that ball. He was and of course, he was built like a football player, so he'd get inside, man, he'd knock the fire out of you.
Yeah, she said it took her a couple weeks to make it happen. All right, so let's think back to the 73 season. That season specifically. You start whenever school starts, the team finds themselves on a roll. You beat just unbelievable moments, I'm sure, throughout the season where you go, oh, this is special. I want to give you a chance, because I do this with my students. We do something called a rose, a seed, and a thorn. Well, a rose, thorn, and seed, right? What was the best thing that happened? What was the worst thing that happened? And what's something monumental that you learned from just that season alone? So rose, thorn, and seed from the 73 championship season. What would be your rose, thorn, and seed?
Well, the rose, without a doubt, Dave, is being around such great people.
Yeah.
One of the things I tell our players all the time, I've said this for years, you are a product of your society. I am so blessed to have been around Bill Freeman and Troy Hodges and Coach Whitehead and Coach Went and Coach Calvin, and then be able to play with those players, a great senior class that was ahead of us, like Ike Brady and Bumgardner and Cook and Hammond and Jensen and Jordan. Coger, I can just list them all right down the list. I mean, Lindsay, those guys were unbelievable. And then Coach Freeman was so smart. He would play his best athletes in the line. That's why you had Jensen play. He was an all-state center, honorable mention, all-state center as a junior. Chuck Markham was an offensive guard. Bill Hammond was an offensive guard. Those guys were running backs back in junior high. But he played athletes up there, and that taught me a lesson. As a coach today, I still think about those things. Get your athletes in there and make sure that they play. He made sure that those athletes were on the field. I think that another thing that I learned from those players, those guys that I just named, Doug Falscraft was probably pound for pound one of the best players I've ever seen. Tremendous linebacker and running back. Those guys worked tremendously hard, and they had great leadership. I went back for the parade that they had this summer.
Oh, yeah.
We were talking, and several of the guys said they think that the team the year before us, before that 73 season, that 72 season, might have been the best ever. But the thing that this team had was leadership.
Oh, wow.
Bill Hammond was a leader. Dereck Jensen, and then you can't leave out Bob Pinnock. Bob Pinnock as a quarterback was unbelievable. So the Rose was being around such great athletes, great coaches, and people who were really focused in on winning and doing the right thing. And that has been a big lesson to me throughout my life.
I almost get this feeling. The feeling that you got whenever you watched The Sandlot for the first time?
Oh, yes.
That feeling of freedom and that like being a kid and exploring and that just that group, right? Just that cohesiveness of that group. And I kind of get the feeling that was your Sandlot moment.
Unbelievable. And we had, also in that senior class, I'll never forget Chad Montgomery and Frank Packard. Those guys, Marty Powell, those guys, they were always getting after it as hard as they could. And then our class, we didn't have as many, but the guys were tremendous ball players, like Stanley, Jim Self, Charles Zaman, the class underneath us, with Billinger and Don Brady and Bird, Conrad, Jack Corliss, Chris Mamer, Dan Wint, everybody. I don't know. I think I just named about everybody, but
yeah.
Out of that group, Dave, I believe it was 18, but I could have been wrong. 15 or 18 of those players went on to play college sports. That tells you something right there. At a 3A high school in Kansas, but it doesn't happen by accident because Bill Freeman, Coach Heckert, and those coaches had groomed those players, and they could have had more players out, but Coach Freeman was tough. And he wanted the best to be there, and that's why they were there.
Wow.
So that was there's no question. I've got so many roses, I could just keep going on and on. But I would say the thorn, you asked about the thorn.
Yeah.
The thorn to be for me is that I didn't get to finish that championship season. I finished in my heart. I was in touch with Coach. I was talking to him all the time.
Yeah.
But my father was transferred to Texas, and so we moved back to Texas. And so I got to play up through the 8th game, getting ready for the 9th and last game of the season against Paola. And I sure wanted to be in that game bad. But we won that game 36-8. And I like that so much. My girlfriend, who is my wife now, was a cheerleader on that team. So that was a special occasion to beat those guys. But, when you look at the records of the games that happened that year, it's amazing. Only 5 teams scored on us throughout the whole year. 5.
Right.
And only time did they score. Nobody had double digits. But yet every game, our team had double digits.
Yeah.
And so you look at a small group of kids that playing. We played both ways, special teams, everything. And it was just a tremendous time. So my thorn was not to get to finish.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, I like that seed that you say. What was the seed?
The seed, what did you learn? What was the big takeaway?
The seed for me was I learned some tough lessons because those coaches stood by their ground. They stood by their word. And that probably has helped me more in my coaching. I can give you all kinds of stories. It's not important. But the bottom line is they were sturdy men that were good for the word. They were always there on time. They were always making things happen. And they stayed with me through life. Yeah. That taught me family, true family. So today, as a coach, I still reach out to players that I coached 30 years ago. Yeah. I still get calls back from 25 years ago. And I'm going to tell you, it is such an honor to be invited to somebody's wedding 15 years later after you've coached. And to me, I couldn't ask for anything more. And that came from those coaches. If that seed that they put in my life, how they stayed with me, even though I had to move, they stayed with me through college, stayed with me in my coaching. So I'm very, very thankful that I had those lessons.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I came across a quote recently, and I think I want to read it to you.
All right.
And then I have a couple questions about this quote, okay? So the quote goes this way. Each of us has to deal with adversity in our own way. I believe in order to achieve any goal, there are 3 major components: character, ability, and determination. But I also believe that with the support of good people, family, and friends, it's a much happier and a much more enjoyable journey. Who do you think wrote that quote?
Well, Bear Bryant wrote a whole bunch of good things. I don't know if it was Bear Bryant or not.
Dereck Jensen.
Dereck Jensen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Dereck Jensen.
that touches my, brings tears in my eyes.
Yeah. Because it's, it's almost word for word kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of adversity that we face. And I tell my students all the time that character is what matters the most. And the only way you show your character is whenever you face adversity. And so, it's not how you fall, it's how you get back up, kind of a thing. And, the fact that he starts this quote by saying, it's not a quote, so to speak. It's just something he wrote for the school whenever the 50th Super Bowl. But he wrote it and it said, starting off dealing with adversity, but ending with the idea that family and friends are what help guide that journey and what help make that journey what it is. And I love that parallels exactly what you've been saying.
That's what hit me between the eyes, and that's how I grew up. And Dereck was that way. Somebody that did such a great thing. I coach now in the conference that he played college football in, the Southland Conference. Yeah. So I went back the other day and looked at his old records. I said, hey, I played high school football with that guy. But I'll never forget Coach Elliott. He was the head coach at UTA. And of course, I moved my senior year to Bridgeport. And when I lived in Osawatomie, those were my formative years. So I was young and growing. And so, I kind of matured a little bit later and probably did a little bit better than I did at Osawatomie. But Coach recruited me over to UTA. And I said, Coach, Dereck was just freshman of the year of the Southland Conference. What do you want me to play? So I'm fullback. And I said, well, Dereck's fullback. He said, yeah. I said, well, you run the wishbone. So he said, I'm only going to have a couple, Jack. I'd like to have you. And I said, well, that means I'm going to be on the bench for 3 years. He said, yeah, you will. I said, well, I think I'll go somewhere else. But, but going over, and I used to go visit Dereck, over at UTA. What a highlighted player, and you never knew that. Just by what you read right there, that's Dereck Jensen. He was always nice and polite, helpful. He had stopped what he was doing to talk to you, and I always thought very highly of him. When he was scouting for the Seattle Seahawks, my son was an outstanding quarterback at a university here in Central Texas. Matter of fact, getting put in the Hall of Honor this next week.
Oh, congratulations.
To the national title a couple of times. Anyway, I talked to Dereck about him, about if the Seahawks were interested. And so always so kind. And then I could talk about each player like that. I get to see Bob Pinnock. I had Bob Pinnock and Bill Hammond come flip the coin at one of my last high school football games I coached in Copperas Cove.
Yeah. Speaking of Copperas Cove, I wanted to ask you, when you started there, and I don't know the record, but you said they maybe had one winning season, or like one season where they had maybe 3 wins in the 50 years before you got there. When you took over this program in Copperas Cove, kind of from what I can recall, what you were saying is that it was kind of like a college mentality coming in. How did you go about building from the beginning? How did you go about building the program there at Copperas Cove?
Well, it's interesting you asked that question. A lot of it had to go with what I remember about Osawatomie. See, I had been a college coach basically all the way up until then. I coached at West Texas State, was a head football coach at Kansas Western University, AD head football coach at Fort Scott Community College. I went to Louisiana Tech. So most of my background had been in college. So when I went to Copperas Cove, the thing about Texas is I don't care if you won a Super Bowl in the NFL, or if you were the college winner as a college football coach, you won a big bowl game. They want to know what you did in high school and football in Texas. So they didn't care about my accolades in college. So I had to tell them how I was going to build a program. I thought back about the times of what Coach Freeman and Coach Heckert and those guys did, and really that's kind of what I talked about. So I went into Copperas Cove and I just watched the kids, watched them work out, hired some great coaches, and we started getting them involved in all sports. In today's world, Dave, everybody wants you to become specialized.
Yeah.
I don't do that. I don't want that. I think it's important to play all sports like we did. And I had my players play all sports. They were multiple sports. I had so many kids in track, it was unbelievable. And I tried to build the program at Copperas Cove off the track, and I did. We won state title in track there, had a couple runner-ups, several regional championships. And I used to tell my players, if you want to know how good we're going to be in football this year, look at the banners down there on the track, around the track. If we had a great track year, we're going to have a good football year. It equates one to the other. And that's how we built the program. And we had a lot of wins. We were very, very fortunate. God blessed us. I always say, if you do right, right will prevail.
Yeah.
Do right and right will prevail. A ready man don't have to get ready. He stays ready. So we're going to work out all the time. And so the big thing on our doors is, I would say, the harder you work, the harder it is to surrender.
Yeah.
That comes from Bill Freeman and that kind of work mentality that they had.
Wow.
And so that's what we did. And we started off winning. We ran our program like a college. I went out and recruited the kids from our district. I would talk to their parents. I'd get in their homes just like college coaches do. And then they got to know us. The businesses got to know us. I'd go around every business and give them my business card, tell them who I was, tell them what we were doing. And you can't believe, we had 8 straight years of sellouts in our stadium. When I first got there, you could pick a seat anywhere you wanted to. And our stadium seated a little over 10,000, and we were packing it like you can't believe. And of course, we were playing some of the biggest games in the state. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but we reached some of the most highlighted programs in the state: Odessa Permian, Friday Night Lights.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know, but I was the coach at Kansas Wesleyan. They portray me in that movie talking to Winchell, the quarterback. And that's my shirt and my sweater vest that the actor is wearing. I loaned it.
Oh, wow, that's cool. I was an extra whenever they shot at the Astrodome.
Well, we beat Odessa Permian. We played them twice, beat South Lake, Carroll, beat Converse, Judson. So we had a great run of it there, but we had great athletes.
Yeah. You know, I think you and I are tied in so many different ways. It's unbelievable that I like, for my father-in-law, you went to school with my father-in-law. You're working with Clint Dozell, the head coach there where you're at now at Texas A&M Commerce. Clint Dozell was the quarterback at the arena team that I worked for when I was 16. You had a shirt on set of Friday Night Lights. I was an extra on set of Friday Night. Unbelievable. Now you basically lived Friday Night Lights for 20 something years. That was your life as the head coach there. You were the man. Did you feel the pressure? Did you feel the need to succeed? Was it the parents in the town on your back all the time when you lose a close one? Or?
Well, Dave, we came into a downtrodden program, a place that hadn't really won. The last winning season it had was 1976.
Yeah.
So, when I got in there, we started winning and people just went berserk. We changed the whole town. It was amazing the things that happened. But it was exciting because people were for us. But I will say this, the pressure that you have, basically you put on yourself.
Yeah.
And I put a lot of pressure on ourselves and our coaches to win. But when I say to win, man, I could take an hour to tell you what that philosophy is. It's not just winning on the scoreboard. No. It's winning in the hearts of those kids. And like I said, I want to see those kids be good fathers. I want them to have a good job and be a good husband. And so those are the things that we worked on and we taught. We were strong with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes and talked to our kids about it. We had a newspaper. We were getting ready. We were playing the third round of the playoffs at Texas Stadium. Had a newspaper from Canada come in because they'd heard I do all my preaching. And I was letting it on them that right before the ball game, talking about Moses told them he parted the Red Sea, go in,
Yeah.
all that, and we did. We went in and we won that ball game. But people tried to shoot at me and say you can't do that in public school, and I said, well, I am who I am,
Right.
and I get fired for doing what I think is right, and bring it on. But that never happened. I was always in good communities that understood morality and understood about trying to teach kids the right things. So I've been very blessed in my life.
Yeah, that's so wildly important, whether you're in a math class or a football field, is that the people that walk in your room, the people that walk on your field, you get an opportunity. It's a chance.
Yes.
You get a chance to leave a mark with that human, and that's 99% of why I teach. And I get in trouble because math sometimes takes a back seat to some of the more important things in life. My state test scores might not be the best in the state, but I'll put my kid's character up against anybody's.
I do a lot of writings, and I write about state tests, and I think state tests stink. I don't believe in them at all, because you're talking right, like you're talking right there. You're talking about your kid. You have to take that student, and you have to take them where they're at and bring them to another level.
Yeah.
Some of those tests are skewed, because you'll go into a school that's got all high academic kids that they come from homes that are blessed, that they're not broken, that are not downtrodden or whatever. So you're taking every kid that you have to make. So I think you need to start every kid where they are, and then see where at their end after they've been in your class. Then you'll see what kind of teacher you are. Because I've seen a lot of teachers that get a lot of accolades, that they take a kid from here and bring him to here, but still their scores are so high that the teacher still looks good. I'm going, you're lost. You're lost.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the thing about athletics.
Yeah. Take every
Go ahead.
Every kid that you get, you're exactly right. Can you find some way to improve?
Yeah, that's the whole key.
Right.
You want to talk about racism? Let's get in football. Let's get in basketball. See what happens when we get in that huddle. See what's happening when we get in that we have no racism problems.
Right.
We all bleed red and white, Osawatomie. We all bleed blue and gold here, because all we are is players with each other, and we're a family. And
there's a common goal.
You want to talk about war? Let's get Russia and America, and let's get a football game going. That's what you do.
Now I got to go find my pads. I'm ready to go, Coach. Let's do it. Well, I'm not going to take too much more.
Osawatomie is such a great place.
Yeah.
We went back and got to go on that parade. I saw Nelson Jordan, and I remember looking at Nelson Jordan when he was a player, tall and lanky, and Eugene Kroger. I mean, all those guys, that class that before us were players. I mean, just players. It's amazing to have been there. I'm so lucky, so blessed.
Well, I might have a senior that needs to go to college this next year and play some football. I'm gonna
send me his information.
Yeah, I will. I absolutely will.
And tell Coach I said hi. Those guys, you're talking about a player now. He was a great player himself.
Yeah, I know. I know. We got a new
Rodney's brother. I had it right on the tip of my tongue.
Randy.
I was about to say his name, but
Randy.
Is that the only? I just didn't. I remember his crazy legs. So
that's the only brother I know for Rodney. But yeah,
probably Randy. But I called him Crazy Legs. He was a great kid too.
Yeah. Oh, good. Those are just salt of the earth. I mean, they're great, great people. I love the Madden brothers. It really made me feel good and welcomed here when I first started, and those are the types of people that let you know you're in a family now. Yeah. We got a new coach this year, a brand new coach, and there's a bit of a scuttlebutt, a little bit of controversy here. The new coach wanted to go meet with the players, introduce himself to the families, go to their homes and say hi and introduce himself and work his way to build those relationships. And I had a handful of players. Well, why does he want to do that? What does he think he's doing? And I can't believe it. This is terrible. And then I have this conversation with you, and I'm like, the new guy's doing it. The new guy's doing great. So
why would they question that? That shows his interest. It shows his care, his concern.
I couldn't tell you what some of these kids are thinking these days, but
that don't make sense.
It doesn't. But I love the parallels there. I love the parallels because it gives me this. It gives me this. Stan said it a couple years ago. Stan said, sometimes you need a little bit of new. And I was driving back from Paola this morning, and the sign says, Osawatomie is a city of history and promise. And it all kind of is starting to click with me in this moment where the promise bit is it's okay to take on a little bit of new life and to take on some sort of a new adventure. And the people of this town are so resilient. The people that are still here after the railroad is come and gone, the people of this town are ready for that promise. They're ready for that future. They're ready to put that next step together. And in all honesty, that's why I'm doing these conversations. That's why I'm talking to people from Osawatomie, is because I want to highlight what kind of character we have here. And what kind of character we've installed. I say we like I had anything to do with it, but in people like you who've gone on to do really great things, highlighting something where you were a coach of a Heisman Trophy winner.
Well, I was blessed. I was blessed.
You should have a Heisman Trophy sitting next to that fox back there, Coach.
Well,
there should be a replica. He should give
you a great one. RG3. I just talked to him the other day, but. Charles Tillman was NFL Man of the Year. We had 16 players go to the NFL, CFL, and XFL from this little school that in Central Texas never had hardly anything. So that's a blessing. But what's really amazing? I don't care where you go, the world is small.
Yeah.
So my newspaper guy at Copperas Cove for the Clean Daily Herald came from Osawatomie. His name was Mark Miller. He ran the paper there in Osawatomie.
There you go.
And I taught Sunday school at First Baptist Church, and Mark and his wife would come to my Sunday school class. And I used to take him hunting and everything, and it was just a small world. We'd have to talk about Osawatomie all the time. Man. And what a great guy. It's a small world. I see people from Osawatomie are around that area all the time, all around. It's pretty neat.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you joining me. Thank you so much for giving me some of your time and being so generous and kind, and giving me an opportunity to talk about the character of this town. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much.
Well, you're very kind. I'm glad that you're doing this. And I'm gonna tell you, you need to have a big accolade put on your head, a big crown, because this is what it takes. And I'm gonna tell you this: you're starting something right now that's about to blow up. Well, all these, you're just talking a little peon here, me being on that team. But when you start to talk about, talk to Bob Pinnock and Ike Brady and Doug Falscraft and Stan Newcomb, those guys that were the real players. I wasn't the real player. You start to talk to those real players that were there, you're going to find out why we were so good. Those guys made it. And that will be something that will inspire these youngsters to come on, because they can be even better today. New coaching staff, man, great things are going to happen for the Osawatomie Trojans.
I'm excited. I'm pumped. Well, I appreciate it, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks so much, Coach.
Thank you, Dave. God bless you.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.
All right.
Bye-bye.